sort of picking up on part of your answer to that question, and it was really about, in the focus group, did the residents of Ward 20 identify some key principles or core values for how they wanted to move forward with their laneways?
Well, I think in the focus group, we gathered many different ideas of where they wanted to go with their laneways, and many of them, they were great ideas. We tried to incorporate some of them in the report, some of them we presented to you today. But there was definitely a general sense that they wanted to move the laneways in a positive way. At least the people we talked to, they wanted to see the laneways used more constructively in their neighborhoods. So I think it was more of a progressive thought rather than, no, we want to keep our laneways how they are. I would say it was much more centered around, let's move them in a more constructive direction.
Any more questions from the panel?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think that there is instruction from those of us who commissioned the report not to push neighborhoods to explore the idea of how would you put laneway housing into your lanes. But I'm curious if any of the neighborhoods, I know that there's some that historically have fought laneway housing, others that are much more tolerant, and others still that have an abundance of laneway housing. I'm curious if there are any neighborhoods that said, who brought it up as laneway housing as an option that they'd be comfortable exploring, and which the neighborhoods those were.
In our focus group, one of the attendees was with the Harbor Village Residents Association, and he spoke to, I believe the quote was, laneway housing, the door on laneway housing is not closed in my neighborhood. His chief concerns were privacy and overlook issues, which were also addressed in one of the chief concerns of staff in the 2006 report, were issues like that.
Did any neighborhoods ask for it?
Not specifically. We believe that it's more sort of a, let's move forward and bring these laneways sort of out of the dark before we get to that point to discuss what we're going to put in laneways.
So are there any more questions from the panel? We'll move to the audience.
I was wondering, in your research or in talking with people about this, is there any kind of a feeling of neighborhoods or residences who want to eliminate the laneway in order to extend their backyards, or to close the laneways to public access so that it's a more, at least so that it appears to be more secure and more private space? Was that an issue that came up at all?
That wasn't an issue that was specifically brought up through our focus group. Now, our focus group, we didn't get a chance to talk to everybody from every part of the ward, which I think would have been tremendously helpful, obviously time constraints and that kind of thing. But what we did notice was there's definitely a shift in attitude in the different parts of the ward. So different neighborhoods recognize their laneways in different ways. And I think that's what we saw. Some people embrace their laneways more than others, but we didn't see that specific, we don't want laneways, or, there wasn't that anti-laneway sentiment anywhere that we heard.
First of all, you guys did a great job. I just want to congratulate you. I think you really put it together very well. I think it leads to a whole bunch of additional interesting questions. Before I get into those, let me just say, I don't know if you've collected precedents from elsewhere in the city of Toronto, but in addition to the ones that you cited, which were in Melbourne and Chicago and Vancouver and so on, there are just so many interesting examples in other parts of Toronto, which, if you documented, would be worth having as part of the repertoire. In terms of the land use issues, I think the moment you start to really touch those, they become qualitative. So, for example, if you take the laneway housing, Vancouver made a very specific decision to only permit rental housing and not the severance of lots. And they did that so that the owner-occupiers of the dwellings that were on the lane would be the beneficiaries, that you wouldn't encourage large-scale developers to come in and start making these into a much more massive operation. And they also saw that as a specific source of housing for multi-generational families, housing for the elderly, and so on. So I think there's some qualitative aspects of that that would be good to explore. You didn't say much about employment on the lanes, and I think that's another really powerful potential for the city, but again, it becomes qualitative. Certain kinds of businesses work really well on the lanes, others would disturb neighbors, and you have to start to make some distinction. So I know you can't do everything in one short study. I think it was a great start, and I think it opens up a lot of really interesting potentials.
I think that we didn't look at specific uses in the lane, like you said, because we're kind of using this to open up the dialogue about that there are lanes out there in Ward 20 that are being underutilized. And let's find out where they are. Let's start talking about them. And then next, if you continue on with this in another group, then they can go on and maybe even take a smaller portion. Ward 20, I mean, we found out is massive. It is